Hi there, and welcome back to my garden, to my very wet garden. It's been raining a lot, but today is the last rain day for quite a while. Maybe a whole week without rain and with nice temperatures. So it will be interesting to see the difference in growth of the potato plants. And yeah, I will have to do some weeding here again, just because the weeds are sprouting like crazy and not all of them dry out when I pull them up with the rake. So I will have to go through here again, even though they're not quite big enough for hilling them up. So that will have to wait a little more before the next rain clouds are rolling in. I thought I'd talk a little bit about how to determine how many plants or how many potatoes to grow and how much area in your garden to reserve for potatoes if you want to be self-sufficient. Now it's not that hard to calculate the whole thing. You just base it on your potato consumption per week. Break it down. How many potatoes or how much do you buy per week? Because every year has about 52 weeks, and when you know how much potato products or how many potatoes you eat per week, it's quite easy to calculate how many you need per year. So if you're a family who buys 1 kilo of potatoes per week, you will need about 52 kilos per year. If you eat 2 kilos of potatoes per week, you will need about 104 kilos for the year. If you're more of a 5 kilo bag per week, we're up to 260 kilograms. Yeah. And we're one of those families who use a 5 kilo bag per week, pretty much on average. So I grow about 260 kilos of potatoes to last me for a year. Now, if you can't store that many potatoes, there's no point in growing that many potatoes. So if your storage is setting you a certain limit, if you don't have a root cellar and have to store them in your basement, which is warmer and more on the dry side, then there's no point in storing 260 kilos of potatoes if half of it will go bad before you're eating them. So keep that in mind. Check how and where you can store them, how long they usually last when you store them, and go backwards from that number. And when we have found out how many potatoes we actually eat over the year, or how many we can store, how many potatoes does one plant produce? So this depends a whole lot on the variety. There are varieties that make excellent potatoes but have a low yield. There are varieties that will give you a bumper crop of 7 kilos per plant, but that don't taste that good or that are just not very exciting. So it depends on the variety that you're growing. If it's been seed potatoes that have been cleaned from potato viruses that can accumulate in the plants, that kind of thing. So it is quite variable. On average, I found out that the average yield per plant is supposed to be somewhere between 4 and 7 kilos, which is on the high side. I would say 4 kilos for a plant that's grown in the ground in good conditions is reasonable. So from our number of 260 kilograms divided by 4, we should need 65 plants. And yeah, depending on your soil and the nutrients and moisture holding capacity of your soil, you will be able to plant them in with different spacing. And I have about 10-12 plants per 3 square meters, which is about 4 plants per square meter. Roughly. So that's where you go for the potato beds. I like to have some spacing between the varieties to not mix them up. So more space is better. If you can give the plants more room, they will have a higher yield. If you give them too much room, they won't cover the ground and the weeds will take over. Will be a lot of work to keep things weed free. So the perfect spacing is that the plants cover the ground. So the soil isn't exposed to sunlight too much and the weeds are not getting sunlight to sprout and grow. So about 4 plants per square meter turns out to be a good measure for my conditions here. So you might have to play around a little bit with the whole thing. But yeah, that's how you calculate how many potato plants you need. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Happy gardening. And see you next time. Bye.